Superfund was federal.
Was override for that.
Superfund?
No, that Mercury site, I thought that was a history.
I never heard about this. This is
Oh, yeah, my God, that was a confusion.
Okay, I guess we can get started. Welcome to the Village of Rybrook Planning Board meeting. Let us all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome all who are here and all the few people out in TV land that actually see streaming video. And do we actually broadcast live? Yeah. You do? Good. That one person out there.
I think 10,
Welcome.
my wife, probably.
not live, 10 seconds
10
delay. I
seconds,
think,
got
something
it.
like that, yeah.
Right. Anyway, my name is Rob Goodman. I'm chair of the planning board. Board members also in attendance tonight are Kevin Branch, John Gerzan, Scott Mendelson, and Lenny Vaisman. Ed Teig and Amy Schoen are excused for tonight. Also in attendance is our liaison from the Board of Trustees, David Heiser, our village attorney, Pam Venya, our superintendent of public works, Michael Nowak, and our village planning consultant from Hardesty and Hanover, Sarah Brown. Our planning board secretary is Tara Orlando, who does all of our minutes and otherwise organizes all these meetings behind the scenes, so thank you, Tara. First up is we have minutes of May 2026. Are there any revisions or modifications to those minutes? I actually have one note about these minutes. I noticed that the resolutions were placed sort of in the middle of the minutes instead of at the end. It may be better to do them at the end, I think. I don't know whether that was a mistake or whether that was a true, yeah, because it's sort of right in the middle of a dialogue. It said the following resolutions, but the votes were after all those resolutions were introduced. So that's just my suggestion. Otherwise, I have no other modifications. On that note, can I have a motion and a second to adopt the minutes?
Moved. Second.
Here you go. Take your choice, Mike. Take your choice,
There
Mike.
is an echo in the room, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Thank you.
Okay, our matter tonight is 6 Brook Lane. And I just wanted to know, you had a conversation? Michael?
Michael had a conversation, alerting the applicant's architect.
Right.
that this
I alerted the applicant that we were going to have a discussion on the application. That was about the extent of my discussion with them, okay?
Okay.
Michael,
And we discussed briefly the implications of the wetland and the floodplain.
Right.
may I ask?
Yeah, go ahead.
I always like, Michael, if you don't mind, why is this application before us?
So when these are wetlands permit.
Work within a wetland buffer, regulated floodway legalization, but primarily it's the wetland and the floodplain area.
And what's the issue with the legalization? What's that?
No issue with legalization, it just has to go through the process.
Well, what we can do is let the applicant
Sure.
make their presentation, and
Summary.
then
Explain
you're
why we're
aware of
here.
you're aware of the issue.
Yes,
And then
we've
let's
had
talk about
conversations
it.
with Michael.
Right, this was originally an application, and the first day of an application, we turned it into sort of a sketch plan conference because we wanted to really talk about this.
Right.
And try to come to some sort of understanding of how it was gonna be dealt with. So why don't you proceed?
I'll give you a summary of what we're doing and why we're
Right.
here tonight.
Exactly.
Okay, good evening. My name is Paige Lewis, architect with Lewis and Lewis Architects in Larchmont. I'm here tonight with the homeowners. We've got Claire McCarthy and Thomas Gilligan here, and they are the homeowners at 6 Brook Lane. I'm going to give you just a quick overview of the location here at the, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I can barely. So here's Brook Lane. kind of running diagonally across the paper, up, down. Westchester Avenue's down here, and we have the brook in their backyard, and then behind them is the office building and the Purchase Professional Park across the way. So here, kind of highlighted with the heavier dashed line, is their subject property. And Claire's father purchased the house a number of years ago, and she's inherited it through her dad. So they've been there for quite a while, and she's familiar with the property. So originally, we were hired to help them lift up the mechanical equipment in the garage, raise it above so it wouldn't flood, because they've had flooding issues in the past. That's the first. And then they wanted to make some architectural features, curb appeal to the front of the house. And in going through all the applications, we've come to find that there's an existing deck at the rear of the property that was constructed a number of years ago that needs to be legalized. And that's kind of the trigger as to why we're here before you folks this evening. The work at the front, the curb appeal, is minor in consequence to the deck. So that's really the gist of why we're here tonight. So I can show you some images of what's happening here. So on the left side of the page is the existing site plan. I'll zoom in a little bit. And you can see the street is to the bottom of the page. The brook is to the top of the page. And the existing house is here. And then there's a deck that kind of wraps around this dashed line that runs kind of a quarter of the way down from below the property line is the FEMA floodway boundary. And then the deck projects beyond that boundary.
How much does it project beyond the boundary?
Let's see. It's really, I'm gonna zoom in right here. We're
Yeah.
kind of, there's a little deck projection. So it's probably about 5 feet
5 feet,
or so.
right. So there's the floodway. The dotted line, is that indicate the floodway?
Yes, that dash line is from the surveyor.
Right.
That's the boundary of the FEMA floodway.
Right. And so the deck is intruding into that area?
Correct.
Right.
Projects beyond the floodway.
Right. Pam, do we have any information yet on when they put up that deck and whether or not it was legal at the time that they put it? I guess it wasn't. I don't know what was illegal and what was legal.
Based on a review of aerial imagery, it appears that the deck was most likely installed sometime after 2000, 2002. Aerial imagery prior to that period does not show the deck, but I think that question is best posed to the applicant to answer. They were certainly aware of perhaps the date of the construction of the deck. And also, we should reference that it's not only the wooden deck that requires legalization, but there's also a glass atrium / greenhouse that was also built without a permit or a certificate of occupancy.
Right. Sir, if you want to come to the microphone, you're welcome to address us.
Yes, we had a permit years ago, 25 years ago, and we had a contractor come in and put an extension on the rear of the house. And Paige could probably point
Right.
that out to you.
That's this
That
rectangle
little piece right
to
there.
the right of the greenhouse.
Yes. And upon constructing that, we asked him if he could put a deck in because he was familiar with the permit procedure and everything. He had gotten a permit. And he said yes. And he started the deck and we asked him if he could put a little greenhouse. Yes. And we assumed that he had gotten clearance because he had put the addition on with permits. And that's how it evolved.
Did you ever get certificates of occupancy for the addition to the house?
Did you get a certificate of occupancy?
Oh, yes, we did.
You did?
Yes. We had it inspected upon, I think there were 3 stages.
And the deck was in place when they gave you certificates of occupancy?
Was the deck in place when you got the CO for the family?
No, it was not. We had asked him when he was under construction for the addition, if he could do that, and we assumed he was gonna get all the permits and whatever
Okay.
it encompassed. But you say there's no permits, so. Where do you know that?
So the deck and the greenhouse were not part of the original permit?
Well, evidently not.
Okay,
because it,
all right.
It doesn't show on the records, I believe.
Yeah.
That's the outcome of it, anyway.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The issue, the principal problem, I mean, legalizations, you know, we have to assess whether or not, you know, the circumstances under which it was an illegal structure and then how it's going to be remedied. The problem with the floodway is that it is highly regulated. We have an application pending before the board involving another property that's building in the floodway. I can't tell you how much in the way of engineering has had to go into that project to try to address this issue. I think, Michael, why don't you, you know, just summarize what the regulations required if things are built in a floodway now?
So under code section 130-13, under flood damage prevention, there is a floodplain analysis, there is a no-rise analysis that's required or may be required as part of an application. I, as the floodplain manager, am responsible to review such. And the issue we have here is that part of the deck is extending into the regulatory floodway. Is that a slab, a deck on grade or elevated on piers?
Elevated on piers.
So it's elevated on piers, so the impact within the regulatory floodway is, in theory, lessened because it's elevated, okay? It'd be a different story if it was a patio on grade or something like that, or like a deck on grade, okay? However, within the AE flood zone, which is what most of this house is located in, that is still regulated under our code. So the conundrum that I'm dealing with, or that I'm grasping it with, is you have a project that's been here for 25, 30 plus years. So it's been there, but we're legalizing it. I still have to conform to the FEMA requirements, DEC requirements with regards to the floodplain. As has been mentioned, we have another application right now that's in the same situation, that's doing a lot of work that has to do the no-rise analysis, the whole 9 yards. So that's kind of where, you know, we're gonna have to really sit down and talk about this and figure this out as far as the no-rise analysis and the impact onto the floodway and into the floodplain, because those 3 items are what is going to drive this moving forward.
Michael, where is the floodplain? Is the floodplain not shown on this survey?
Yeah, I can pull up the survey of the property, and so if, let me zoom in a little bit more. Is that better? Can you? So then this is the brook, and the property line kind of runs approximately through the middle of the brook. So here's the edge of the brook, and then this light blue line here is the floodway boundary line. And then the deck is outlined as such there. Can zoom in a little bit.
So-
However, it needs to be understood, though, from the elevation of the brook right now to the top of the wall, you have about an 8 to 10 foot elevation change in the brook, okay? So I just want the board to understand that this isn't a horizontal piece of land that's abutting a brook. You understand what I'm saying? It's elevated by approximately 8 to 10 feet.
It's above the brook.
It's above the brook, but mathematically, based on FEMA standards, it's still within the floodway, okay? So, but it's not like the other property we're dealing with,
I
okay?
see.
So they're two different.
So in terms of sort of the.
No, thank you
Just
for that.
just as how I mean, one issue is trying to determine whether or not the rise, whatever it is, whether there is a rise of, beyond what is, minimally required. I guess it's a no rise requirement. So there can't be a rise in the floodplain as a result of the structure in the floodplain. Is that how it works?
That is correct.
So one of the technical problems is how do we determine whether or not there's a rise that is created by the structure?
Right.
And if there's no structure there, you can figure out, you can do the math, I guess, if
But with
you're
this
better at math than
deck
me.
structure, there's,
But now you have an existing structure, we don't know how that has already affected the floodplain. And I'm not exactly sure how you back into the right analysis on it.
right.
And then if there is a rise, which for most of the time there probably is there a way through, maybe an amendment to the site plan to sort of mitigate that or eliminate that by maybe reducing the size of the deck? Maybe there's something about putting it on piers and, I don't know.
Right,
I'm
right.
just speculating, but
Yeah,
there may be a
if
way
we-
of
or
dealing with that.
Reduce some of the area that we project into the floodway,
Right,
like this little piece that I highlighted
Mr.
around
Chairman,
that tree.
yeah, go ahead.
I'm reading the notice of disapproval from our building inspector, Mr. Fuse, dated April 10 of 26. And when you read that, there is nothing about the flood zone there at all in his disapproval. He's basically disapproving because you went to the village, you applied for the permit to put the second story
Above
and
the garage, right,
and the porch,
right,
and he basically would be violating some setbacks,
right. that we
and
set
rightfully
it to
so,
zoning.
he disapproved that.
Right,
And this is why I ask, why is this before the planning board?
Because we have jurisdiction over wetlands, we have
Yeah,
independent
but
jurisdiction over
if you
wetlands.
just read this would have been a kind of zoning board of appeals issue
right. We started
because
with
of the
zoning.
setbacks, but I guess this whole flood zone area hit us in the face, and that's why this came to the planning board.
Well, it's in the planning board because it's in a wetland area. And it happens that there's a complication with it being in a wetland area.
I guess
which
my
gives us
question is, if they were complying with the setbacks as in the code, would they have gotten the building permit without coming back to the planning board?
Well,
I understand your question.
Ask your question again, I'm sorry.
If the applicant did not violate, or the proposed, they did not violate anything, correct that. Their proposed addition, if was in compliance with the setback and provisions of the code, would they have gotten the permit to put the addition, second floor addition, without coming to the planning board?
well, there's a legalization involved as well.
So, second story addition is work outside of the floodplain. That's a second story addition. So in my interpretation, I would say they're not violating the wetland area or the buffer, okay?
They were just in violation of the setbacks.
It would need
If they need a variance, yes.
Yeah,
If they
yes.
did not need a variance,
Yes.
then no. However, the fact that there was additional work that was done within the wetland buffer that violated the code, that's what triggers them to go
You
to
see,
the planning board.
the building inspector basically said, with the deck, the size of the deck is huge, so would violate the 3.5% coverage, where it would be 9.49% coverage rather than 3.5 as per the code. The building inspector did not mention at all the deck is illegal. Current deck is illegal because it's in wetland. It's illegal because coverage.
Yeah, but we have an independent jurisdiction as a board we are charged with the responsibility of reviewing applications that impact wetlands, regardless what the building department does. The building department may not focus on this as a violation.
I understand,
But-
Mr. Chairman, that, but again, my point is that, and there was a purpose why I asked at the outset, why is this before us?
I think that,
Yes.
I think our jurisdiction is clear why it's before us. It impacts a wetland. And we have to evaluate how the construction is going to affect that wetland.
But
Normally we deal
nothing
with-
that's being built, as Michael just said, it's in the wetlands. The new addition would be outside the wetlands.
No, but this is
With-
also a legalization.
With the exception of the portico in the front that has the 2 posts and maybe some concrete work, minor work within the buffer zone, okay? But once again, to legalize an application, you're still required to go back on what was done and still
I
handle it
understand
as
that,
if it was done.
But I understand all of that, but, you know, it's something just doesn't, I mean, we're going back 30 years, or 20 years, or 25 years, and all of a sudden we're saying it's illegal.
I'm not saying it's illegal.
We don't.
I'm not saying it's illegal. I mean, maybe there's language in there that the building inspector may be saying it's not legal because it doesn't have
we
a.
are saying
I'm
the
not saying
deck
it's
is in the way, it's in the floodplain.
This is the.
Correct. It's
Okay,
in a
so it's
floodplain.
illegal.
Look at,
No,
this is the-
it's in a floodplain. May not have gotten permits at the time that it was done. So our standard course of action is what's called legalization, which means get the proper permits, get the proper documentation, and have it documented properly. So
John.
we're not saying it's illegal. It's there. It's been there.
The
Just
point-
they didn't
the
obtain the
point
right
is
permits,
that
so now
when-
we're trying to.
This is a very common issue with a lot of regulatory law. When you ask for a regulatory benefit, it opens the door to ensure that you have a legal basis to do it. You have to be in conformity with the law. You have to be in conformity in the law if you want the
I
benefit.
understand that, but, you know, sometimes, you know, I hate to use the expression statute of limitation, but, you know, if this, you know, it's just too long back in time that we don't even know when the deck was built. And I think, if, reading between the lines, the only way you're going to be able to legalize this is to remove the deck.
Or
But
reduce its size.
John, if what you're saying is true, then yeah, half the all the legalizations that probably the building department and Mike deal with wouldn't have to get legalized because we would just give them like an adverse possession or something over like.
No.
I understand what you're saying. You don't like the
all
fact
back.
you don't like the fact that they submitted the homework back to the teacher and the teacher found more wrong with it. Like I get that, but like at the same time they're trying to do it the right way, and we've got to give them the permits if it's.
But we're also in a bind too, because we have relationships with FEMA and DEC and the environmental agencies that are all over this stuff. And for us to be able to get grants and to get the benefits of the programs that they have, we have to comply with their regulations. And one of their regulations relates to how these floodways are managed. And if we disregard if we disregard, let's say, a problems with an application because there may be equitable issues, that still doesn't resolve the regulatory issues, and we could be called on the carpet for that. And Mike is sort of our interface with all of those agencies, and I think we wouldn't be as sensitive to it as if it weren't for the fact that there is another application where this was an issue that was called at the beginning of the application, and I can't tell you how much the applicant has had to jump through hoops in order to address this issue. Now, an applicant comes before us that wants to legalize an issue, and it can't happen that we just say, well, fine, it's been in the floodplain, we don't see there being any problem with it, go about your business. It's sort of opened up the door. The application has opened up the door for us to look at this stuff.
So how do we legalize this?
So personally, I mean, I just want to apologize to Ms. Page because I didn't have a chance to reach out to her and to talk to her because of the storm. I got all held up, so I apologize. But I think we need to have a conference call, or get at least the four of us. I want to visit the site
Yep.
and see, because I got some ideas on what we can or can't do. And I think there's an approach that may work, but it all depends on what's out there on
understood.
site, okay? And then I could also reach out to my counterparts at FEMA and
Okay.
run ideas by them, at least see
Okay.
if we're going down the right rabbit hole, because last thing I want to see someone doing is spending a whole ton of money on studies.
Right.
I like studies, but they gotta be useful and for a purpose.
Correct.
Don't want to just do it for education purposes.
Right.
If I looked at the photo correctly, the greenhouse is really installed on the
It
deck.
sits on top of the deck.
Right,
So
so
it's-
I
so
don't
the
even
deck
think
is-
you should be talking about the greenhouse.
Right,
I think you
correct.
should be only talking about the deck,
Understood.
because greenhouse physically is not touching the ground.
not impervious, I don't double dip.
Thank you,
Right.
thank you, thank you,
800 on top of 800, still 800.
thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, but you know, it's an impression like, oh yeah, we have a greenhouse, no, but it's not.
Sure. No, under-
separate structure.
Yes,
And to remind you, the whole reason we came here is we started with expanding the garage and moving the mechanical equipment out of the garage, out of the floodplain, and getting it up. And then we're like, well, let's add some curb appeal to the house, and then the deck thing became
Let me,
more
let me ask you a
prominent.
question. You indicated that when you started that there were flooding issues with that.
Correct.
That's the reason why you needed to get the mechanicals out of the garage. What's sort of I mean, is there a lot of flooding in that area? I mean, it's right near the Blind Brook,
right on the
so.
brook. Do you want to speak to?
Isn't this the neighborhood where they were like lifting houses up like hydraulically?
Your history of flooding?
Remember that?
Sort
They
of
they came.
hurricane
They remember they
houses.
lifted the whole house
it's
up
like
on.
8 houses down.
Yeah, yeah,
And kept it in place.
yeah. They lifted it.
5 years ago with Ida,
Oh, well,
September.
yes. A lot of homeowners were whacked by that.
we had four, beg pardon?
How much water?
We had 4 feet of water now.
Oh, my goodness,
In the-
wow.
We had to throw everything out on the first floor.
that's not the basement, that's on the first floor,
On
right?
a slab.
Yeah,
Slab on grade.
yeah.
So what happened is,
Damn.
I cut all the sheetrock out, went threw all the furniture out. And, that was, I guess they called it the 100-year flood.
I think that was like a 500-year flood.
2 people
Ida.
died.
Yeah, that's when
Yeah.
the two people got washed away from the car, yes, husband and wife, yeah.
We had 2 cars come between our house and the neighbors, went in the brook, went down, got stuck in the bridge, which further backed the water up.
Since Ida, have you had any flooding issues?
Beg pardon?
Since Ida, since that huge storm, which basically flooded everything, with the storms that we've had more
We had
recently?
No, that was
No.
the old
Just
one.
keep, you know,
So what happened is,
I hear you, man.
well, I'm in engineering, but retired.
With you.
And many times, Mother Nature is the best engineer. And in this case, the deck was not a problem in a 100-year flood.
it was probably only dry, it was only dry area,
Didn't move it in. But the house next door got knocked off the foundation.
yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
house, not the deck. So, beg pardon?
Which direction, downstream or upstream?
The house?
Which house got knocked off the foundation? The house to the right of you.
Exactly. If you go in the back, you'll see it's off the
I
foundation.
think that would be upstream.
And that could be a problem taking it down because once you disturb it, it could just fall. So,
I mean, that's the other issue, is that now since the floodplain has been affected, if you freed up, if you made it possible for the floodplain, how it would affect the floodplain to take that structure out. I think one of the questions is, we're assuming it's a good thing to take that structure away. Maybe it's not such a good thing to take that structure away. Maybe it's now become part of the
So
landscape.
we have approximately 3 houses on Brook Lane that we purchased under a FEMA floodplain program and through the NRCS program. 8 is one of them that will be knocked down very shortly. okay? And the floodplain volume will be restored back onto the property. So by having that structure removed and the property slightly graded towards the brook, you're gonna, in essence, put back some volume.
Was this particular house ever under consideration to be purchased?
So the program was offered to anybody in the area that wanted to participate. So we did not go to people, but we brought the information forward, we brought the program forward. People had the option to participate, opt in, get surveys, get assessments done of the properties. So I don't know how many people did or didn't, I don't have that in front of me, but of like 23 or 28 people that were interested, we wound up with like 8 houses that we purchased.
So I have a question just for clarification. So on the map, it showed the floodway, and we're talking about the floodplain.
There's a
Those two
floodway.
terms are separate, so I want us to clarify the difference between the
So
two.
floodway is the regulatory channel of the brook where the water flows. Floodway is the regulated area where the brook goes outside of its banks and floods the land.
The second one is floodplain.
I'm sorry, floodplain. Floodplain. The floodway is the area within the brook of flooding.
Which is right back where the deck is.
Right.
Which
There, right
so
there.
so my point is the floodway, which is the most severe area, is annotated on the map, but we don't have an annotation of the floodplain, which I didn't see it on the map, but I imagine that
It's at the front of the house.
it exceeds the
It
property
exceeds,
line,
yeah.
right? So it's in the actual floodplain. Yes, but it abuts the floodway. Right.
And the
I just
deck
want
is
to
in the
clarify
floodway.
that because there's two different
By the elevator,
factors
yes.
that we're looking at from that perspective.
Yes.
Right.
So hydraulically, it may not have that.
Yeah.
I have to go there and take a look.
I think from the photograph, the back of the deck is more elevated than the front. As you go closer to the house, it's almost at the ground level.
Look, I think the regulations are intended to remediate a problem. But I also think that to slavishly follow regulations where the result is going to be a negative result is also something to consider. So I think that the best way to proceed, as I think Michael suggested, is to, put our heads together. Sir, you're an engineer, that's great, because I think that there's certain questions relating to the engineering of this.
Absolutely.
Okay, well,
But
okay,
still-
but you had the mind for it, which I do not, so.
So in terms of planning board process, do we pause or adjourn and get with Michael and?
Right.
And then come up with a plan and come back if
Right.
whatever we decide to
Right.
do?
Right, because whatever assessment is made as to what can be done about this, if anything needs to be done about it, I mean, that's why I think we need to also consult the regulators, because there could be a determination that if we took the structure out, maybe it would have an impact that no one would have considered. That could be negative.
Right.
So before anything dramatic happens, I think we have to get the experts in this area to take a look at
Okay.
this and make an assessment, what needs to be done, what should be done. That may affect your site plan, and that may require revisions of your site plan. And
Absolutely.
I think it would be better to submit the site plan when this issue is resolved, and then we can move forward
Okay.
from there, because it's not an unduly complicated application when we deal with this issue. There are the zoning variances to get, which we would, which, by the way, I mean, one of the reasons for a sketch plan conference is trying to reduce those variances, but obviously you've thought about that, and there are restrictions
Correct.
of your ability to do that, but so I think that we can deal with this floodway issue and address that in some way.
Okay.
Then we'll,
The reason that you, pardon me,
Go ahead,
Chairman.
go ahead.
The reason that you want to do the addition over the garage, is that being driven by the flooding issues at all?
Yes, that's the primary driver. for that to
Okay,
get that up.
Now, stay there where you are with that point. If they never came to us for a permit to alleviate their flooding problem, would anybody ever have gone back and addressed this issue of this deck that's been there for 20 plus years?
The building inspector, the code enforcement
Chances
officer
are
may
nobody would have ever gone out there because the deck wasn't causing any flooding problem. May have actually, it may have actually improved the situation.
That's an open question.
I know it's an open question,
Because
Mr.
it-
Chairman, but sometimes I think, I don't know what I think.
John, we've gone back and forth with applications where people build things without permits and in contrast to site plans, and we get angry because people don't do it.
Scott, I understand.
We can't then say to
Scott,
people
I
who are
under-
trying
I-
to build in the floodplain, hey, you got to do all these things, but the people who did it without the proper approvals, which we're trying to fix, it's okay.
Scott, I understand all of that. But these people are coming to us because they have a flooding issue. And they want to remove the mechanical equipment. And it's a really reasonable request. And as a result of that, we open into Pandora box.
Well,
Right?
that's what we do. We open up Pandora's boxes.
And sometimes I have a problem with the Pandora boxes.
Well, the thing is, we do not know what the impact has been. And it could have been a negative impact, except no one really focused on it.
I guess I'm speaking a lot, Mike, because I would hope that, when you talk to the powers to be with the regulatory or with the flooding, that they will consider, have this as a consideration at least.
Correct. And I understand your point. You got to also understand that the point from FEMA and their view is that when they come out to sites and review these types of situations, let's say, and they do a review for the firm program and the rate maps, they ding things like this as violations of the program. Those violations then impact the municipalities from getting better flood rate insurance for their residents. They can potentially cause issues for obtaining a grant. They can pose issues from an enforcement issue of the regulatory agency's policies. So, I'm sympathetic to that to residents, and those who know me know I try to get creative around things as best as I can and try to work with people as much as we can within the confines of the law.
And I think I know you quite well. And
You
I
know
can,
me quite
I
well,
can
and
attest to that.
you've known I push buttons as much as I can, and I push the limit where I can. But, we have to be consistent. We have to approach the applications with uniformity.
I guess-
Otherwise, we open up ourselves.
I guess I would be a little less vocal, and I apologize if I am a little. If the applicant came to us for an application to build a new deck in the same location, that would be totally, in my mind, to be a totally different ballgame. Okay, but we are, it's 20 plus years that this has been there, and for all we know, none of us knew about it. All right.
But we have to look at the second and third order effects. Okay, it might not be impacts on that property, but there are people downstream, and we know that flooding is a factor of velocity, and as it goes downstream, velocity increases. So there might be, secondary impacts as a result. You might not see them there. There might have to be a larger study to look at second and tertiary impacts, and that's what we got to take into consideration from our.
And how we are
Positions.
going, how we are going to establish that? How we
At this very moment, I can't say, but
How
that's
we are
something
going-
that
yeah.
we have to think about.
I think that's, the thing is you can't unsee what you see, right?
That
Pam?
too.
That's what you can't see, and this is a situation where we can't unsee what we see. If the application never came before us, we would never know about the deck. No one might know about the deck, and the deck would continue from in infinitum
the only point I'm
on the
making.
sale.
That's the
But the fact is that as a result of the application, now we do know, and we can't ignore it because we're too bound up in obligations to other agencies that regulate this.
Well, but we're also opening ourselves up to legal challenges for people who we are enforcing it to. We can't do that.
Because there could be,
can't do that.
to Kevin's point, there could be people downstream that say, hey, well, look.
But
you
even
know,
for
you-
other
you
people
let-
that are-
Right, you let this structure stay there, and I'm getting flooded. Maybe it's because of that. So I think, look, I think we can't ignore it. I think we have to take it seriously, but I think that our staff really tries to help homeowners in this situation. No one is interested in screwing anyone. We want everyone to be able to use their property to the fullest extent they can, subject to these sorts of issues arising. So, Mike will have he deals with the regulators often. He knows them. I'm sure he'll present this in the most sympathetic sort of way. He'll speak to you. There'll have to be a lot of sort of background work in managing what needs to be done here. But I think we'll do it to the extent that we can. But we can't ignore it. As a board, we can't ignore it. It's just we're too enmeshed in the regulatory scheme to ignore it. So we're going to have to deal with it. But hopefully people at least will be reasonable. The regulators will be reasonable about it. But I think the ultimate question is going to be, well, what has been the impact of all this? Has it been positive? Has it been negative? And how they're going to make that assessment, I don't know what the math is going to look like.
Michael, if it comes down to doing the study, would FEMA necessarily do the study? So they will kick that back to the village or to the applicant,
The
right?
study has to be performed by the applicant's professional. FEMA only reviews the studies for context and for engineering practices protocols to make sure they followed the standards for such a study.
All right.
I'm curious relating to that question, because there are a lot of homeowners with environmentally impactful homes that don't have an awful lot of money. And if they're confronted by a potential regulatory conundrum like this, and everyone is looking to the homeowner to come up with the funds to be able to do that, is there any other source of funding that a homeowner can get to do the right thing? Because what this sort of situation discourages people from doing is doing the right thing, of keeping it silent. Because if they make a big deal about it, they're going to be stuck with thousands and thousands of dollars of fees that they can't afford. And that seems to be very inequitable, because there are others in the community that may have plenty of money to do this. And it's like they have endless resources to throw at this sort of thing. But I think most people do not. And I'm wondering whether there's any source of help in a situation like this, where it's really, the equities are difficult to stomach.
So I'm not currently aware of any financial resources that are available. There are entities like Cornell University and the Sea Grant that oftentimes work with municipalities on grants and applications and things. Not to say that maybe portions of like Manhattan College or some other entity that have engineering may not be able to do something to help someone, okay, where the students may work with their professors and maybe do an analysis as part of a graduate level
Right.
program, but I'm not aware right now of any of those available. There may be money out there, there may be programs, but I have yet to see.
I can see, a couple of phone calls and a couple of weeks, a month down the road where this is coming. This is going right where, now, are we, as a village or our consultant, are we prepared to tell the applicant or get, or would the applicant's professionals know what study to do?
No different than other applications that we've been doing. It's pretty black and white. The code says no rise analysis. FEMA says no rise analysis. They have protocols. They have their guidelines on how to do that. It's a specialty part of engineering where certain engineers do only that. Okay, it's not like a civil engineer that's doing heavy highway type work. This is more of a focused and specialized area that not as many engineers may do. Okay, so it's more of a specialty.
Okay. All right. Well, let's have a dialogue on this and see what needs to be done.
Terrific, so I'll reach out to Michael.
Right,
we'll
and come up with
coordinate.
maybe a plan of action that can be,
Absolutely.
that's reasonable to do. And then let's come back next
Back as-
week.
As needed, if
Yeah, well,
course of
you-
action is determined that.
Right, if you did, look at this really within your discretion. If you think you need more time, that's fine.
Is there a time limit on our application before you?
No, you can file the application at any time. There's no time limit.
I mean, since we've started with you, there isn't, if we, say we take a couple months to come back before you, there's no
No.
expiration on it.
No.
Okay.
That's the point of having a sketch plan conference as opposed to having the application filed.
Is there a point of the applicant going before the zoning board of
That's
because
right.
the inspector pretty much referred them to the zoning board.
But
Do
if-
they need to go at this point to the zoning board?
Yeah, but those variances may change depending on
What-
th-
Yeah, what we
how this.
determine with the deck.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if you decide that, you may make changes depending on what
Right,
the
what we
results
come up
are.
with when we walk
That
it with
could,
Mike.
that could affect or reduce or eliminate these variances. Well, at least some of them, maybe.
Right,
some.
or maybe add to it. 'Cause if
Or
we-
may
the
add to
deck
them.
may need a variance in
Right.
itself, where it's located, or.
I think my suggestion would be at this point, hold off
Right.
on the zoning board.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Do
that
we
would be,
know what?
I don't think
why waste
they-
time and money?
I don't think
Yeah.
they would even have the jurisdiction unless we referred it anyway. So that a formal application would have to be filed before we would refer
Right.
it to.
Okay.
So all of it is basically on hold until, you and your people and we and our people can
Okay.
put our heads together and figure this one out. And then when you're ready, you'd put together a site plan application. And again, our staff is a great staff. I've been a chair for many years. Everyone here, I mean, we collectively have hundreds of years of experience in dealing with planning-related issues. Between our attorneys, our superintendent of public works, our planning consultants, they're really, really top-notch. And applicants don't use them, don't consult with them nearly as much as they should, because they really know how things operate in this village and what the regulations are. So use them, and let's see if we can come to
Okay.
an approach that
Well,
is
thank
acceptable.
you all for your time this evening. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, we don't want to waste your time. That's what
Thank
we
you.
don't want to do.
Thank you for that.
Okay. All right, okay. Well, we'll see you when we see you.
Yes.
But I'll keep, I'm usually kept informed of these things pretty regularly, and I'll be interested in this one, so. All right. Okay, no further, anything further? Adjourn the meeting. All right.
Motion second.
Moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
John, you sound like a man that has been burned by video review recently.